Hi, I'm Joe DiMatteo of the Len and Joe Ask the Pharmacist radio broadcast. Thanks for tuning in with us today. I'm going to give you an overview today of the past scenario that we just did on the consequences of stress, which are the impact of how stress affects your body. That was part one in these two segments. Part two today, I'm going to deal with the coping mechanisms. How do I deal with this stress? What can I do? What are the nutrient aspects? What are the dietary? What are the physical exercise parts of this? What about sleep? How do I cope with stress? We all have it. Some, unfortunately, to a greater degree than others. Some have battled a lot of physical issues. They've battled chronic pain syndromes. Others have had the loss of a spouse, a loved one. There's been major, major trauma and stress in their lives. Others, unfortunately, create their own stress. Others, unfortunately, live in a stress-filled situation, either being in bad relationships, bad marriages, and I'm not a psychiatrist nor a psychologist. I'm a pharmacist, a clinical nutritionist, and a doctor of naturopathy. I'm here to help you understand the mechanisms, why it is, how it affects you physiologically, neurologically, the whole consequence of that. Now, what do we do about it? How can we help you? I think the first area to start with is to understand that in the most fundamental aspect of this, your diet is really, really important. So the core of that is the more sugar I consume, the more caffeine I consume, the more stimulants I consume, the more alcohol I consume. I first of all drive or drag away nutrients that are important to me, minerals, the B vitamins. I use caffeine. It stimulates and overstimulates my adrenal glands, creates a hyper activation of my adrenals. So what happens then? When that happens, I am interfering with my body's ability to help me to cope with that stress. So your diet has to be a very basic, straightforward. I can't skip meals. I need to have protein at each meal. I need to have a low glycemic load diet, meaning that my blood sugars don't spike. Well, what does that mean? Well, if I eat a lot of processed, a lot of white flours, a lot of white sugars, processed flours, foods that are very high sugar and saturated fat intake, I have an impact on that whole scenario. So I need to have a diet that has adequate lean sources of protein, quality sources of protein, complex carbohydrates, more vegetables, more fruit, nuts and seeds, nut butters as snacks. I mean, we need to make huge directional change because many folks under a lot of stress skip meals, don't eat meals. That's a huge problem. So let's just start with the basics there. Number two, deep breathing. Deep breathing is a great stress coping mechanism. Why? Because when we're under stress, we breathe very shallow. By breathing shallow, I do not exchange my oxygen and CO2 well. That makes me more acidic metabolically. Also, that interferes with technically my body's ability to make serotonin. When I deep breathe, as a singer would breathe, for example, I can exchange CO2 better. I oxygenate my tissues better. I get more oxygen to my cells. I generate more energy. Oxygen is involved in metabolic pathways to make sure all of the mechanisms at a cellular level are happening efficiently. So deep breathing, do I have to do this all day long? No, it's not practical. You're at work, you're at school. How about maybe 2 or 3 minutes, maybe twice a day? 3 seconds to take in a deep cleansing breath. Take it in slowly over a 3 to 4 second span. Hold it for 3 to 4 seconds. Release it slowly over 3 to 4 seconds. Deep breathing can be helpful. Physical activity and exercise, let's move on. Hugely beneficial. There's a tremendous amount of scientific literature in the past, even 4 to 5 years, that shows that adequate levels of exercise, consistent exercise, aerobic and even resistance training can reduce the stress response, can quiet down the stress response. Whatever word, whatever terminology you want to use, can counterbalance. Why? Because there are so many. In the previous video that we did, we taught you how it can make you catabolic, breaks your body down, damages your neurons. Well, we have to do things that can raise a standard or counteract that. Starts with your diet, physical activity and exercise. I need to sleep. If I don't sleep well, a lot of times high levels of stress lead to chronic insomnia. I need to sleep, adequate levels of sleep. play an important role here because that allows you to make human growth hormone. And we always say on the radio broadcast that that's a way for the little worker bees, in essence, to come out and do the work of repair. So I need to be able to do that. So rest is adequate. On the backside, even small 10, 15-minute, not necessarily cat naps, but even quiet times during the course of the day. Let's go on to some other nutrient-based approaches here. What are the nutrients? We love to use an adrenal adaptogen type of a prep that helps you. They're rhodiola, relora, a combination of these in one particular product that we utilize can help you with an adrenal stress response. Remember, the adrenal glands are part of this stress response. When we're under high levels of duress, we're punching out all these stress hormones. Not necessarily a bad thing, but when I punch them out in an inordinate, chronic fashion, I have dramatic stimulatory mechanisms which will raise my blood pressure, cause my heart rate to increase, and do all the things that we talked about in the previous video. The other part of this is to use a component of vitamin C, buffered vitamin C ascorbates. We use an all-L-ascorbate, a pH neutral, completely pH neutral, using buffered vitamin C. Why? If you look at a couple nutrients that the adrenal glands are highly dependent upon, the B complexes, pantothenic acid in particular, magnesium, vitamin C, hugely adaptive. So we will utilize buffered vitamin C. So you have now an adrenal adaptogen, buffered vitamin C ascorbates. We use Daily Essentials, a quality, high quality multiple vitamin that has activated transporters, alkalinizing salts, and not mega doses of any one particular nutrient, but adequate dosing in coenzyme forms of the Bs that will allow for adequate absorption and also utilization because of the adrenal glands and their high dependence upon the Bs. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to be careful of what we consume, sugar, alcohol, caffeinated beverages, stimulants, etc., that can affect us. So when you really look at this, the basic approach is, and there are many things. We're doing very, very quick, short little quippets of information, counseling in many cases. There's therapy, certainly, and I think there's a multiple areas that you can move into. But my role today is just to explain in stress and the consequences of stress, the damage that it creates to the body. Number two, what it can lead to. Number three, are there options for, which is today, coping with stress? And it begins with the very basics. Quality nutrients, the right types of nutrients, adequate sleep and rest, a quality diet, deep breathing, just some basic fundamental components. Remember, there's no magical nutrient. Also, keep in mind that we recommend a saliva hormone testing to be done periodically for folks that have been under chronic stress. It actually will measure the adrenal stress response. It measures cortisol and DHEA to see where you are on that continuum. There's different phases: adrenal exhaustion, adrenal fatigue, an adaptive area for the adrenals, and it always is helpful to us as practitioners to find out where you are so that we know where to support you best. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video today. Hopefully, more than anything, that it's been helpful. You can reach us at lenandjoe.com or at 877-275-7743, or also at one of the offices. The office that I work out of is the Integrative Wellness Center, and you can reach us at that Integrative Wellness Center at mscompounding.com. Thanks. Have a great day.